Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, and we have done it. 3-2 against Monaco. It was not an easy game as expected, but we managed to get the win, and I think it's really like the main thing that matters at this point. There's a few things to talk about, but I'm trying to keep it very organized for a change instead of just me rambling on for 20 minutes. There's three topics that I'm going to cover. I'm going to talk about the game overall and what it means and how we did, but in a very general way. I'm going to talk about Désiré Doué, who's clearly the man of the match, and then I want to talk about tactics for a while because this game crystallized a lot of things for me in my head, and I think we can talk about this team, we can talk about game after game after game, but I think like at the core of all of our discussions, there's a tactical thing, and I want to touch on that. But first, before we get started, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. The button is right down here somewhere. It doesn't cost you anything. It massively helps. So just give it a click and join the family. So first things first, 3-2. We get the win. That was the main thing. I said in the preview I would be happy with any sort of win or even a draw. We got the win by 1 goal. It is something. We came back from hell as well and had like a horrible start. We were down 2-0 at the 20th minute. We missed a penalty by Vitinha, and then Dembele got injured. And I bet, a lot of you guys thought we were already going to be out of the Champions League. In the end, we managed to turn it around. We managed to get a 3-2 win, which honestly could have been wider, and we could have scored more, and we probably should have scored more. And I think it's funny because recently, like every time we get a win, I come out of it feeling like not deflated because I'm very happy with the win, but like not super enthusiastic either. And I think this one, I think there's a lot of positive, but I think it also calls into question a lot of negatives. And I think, just the fact that we managed to be 2-0 down after 20 minutes, our defense in complete disarray, just the fact that, we take so many shots on goal and create so much, and yet like don't manage to score more than 3 goals, that we spend the whole second half basically playing 11v10, and we don't manage to score more than 1 goal in that time. Yeah, like there's a lot of things that I think like worry me slightly, and I get out of this game. It's funny, like we should think, oh, we got the win away, like it's actually like it should be comforting us in the fact that we're clear favorites to go through. I still think that we are. I still think we're better than this Monaco team, but honestly, like I'm not relaxed at all. I think we'll still have to do a job in the Parc des Princes. And this Monaco team, like they're not done. And they scored 2 goals on us within 20 minutes. We're not done. There's still like a lot of work to do, and we shouldn't pat ourselves on the back just yet. So yeah, and I think ultimately, like this game ended up being yet again another replica of what we've seen a lot, which is, and essentially in the second half, in the first half to some extent, in the second half, us dominating possession, us having the ball, us knocking it around, us creating chances, but not that clear cut, with a good goalkeeper, with a lot of density in the defense of Monaco. And so in the end, yeah, sure, we take like, I don't know, like 30 plus shots, but there's always, we take those shots with always like 5 players between the shooter and the goal. It's not easy to score in those positions. So I think there's a little bit of disconnect between the stats and the actual productions that we have. The difference, I think, on those games, especially with if I compare against Rennes, is Désiré Doué. And let's talk about Désiré Doué, because obviously we spent the last week with everyone and their sister saying, oh, Doué is too individualistic, he doesn't pass the ball, he thinks he's Neymar, and he needs to sit on the bench, and he needs to deflate his head, and so on. I don't buy into that narrative. I didn't buy into that narrative. Yes, he had some games where he turned in like performances that weren't as good as what he can do. But yeah, I don't buy into the whole thing. And yesterday, he scores 2 goals and gives 1 assist. And all of a sudden, people are like, oh, Doué, he was like so much more collective and so on. No, he was not. Like, go back and look at the game. He was not more collective. He was more impactful and more lethal in his production. And, it's if you look at it, the first goal, like there's no question, is like literally in a position where he needs to take the shot, so he takes the shot, and that's fine. The second goal, he cuts back inside, he takes a shot from out of the area when there's like literally 5 players in front of him. And I'm sorry, but the collective things to do at that point is not to take the shot, it's to pass the ball around until you find a better position to shoot. I'm very thankful that he takes the shot. I think a player like Désiré Doué and a player like Barcola and a player like Vara and a player like Dembélé, they're here to take chances. They're here to take risks, and they're here to make things happen that wouldn't happen otherwise. And this falls into this category, like no trouble. But him taking that shot, it's not the collective things to do. The goalkeeper pushes it back on Hakimi, who gets the goal. Fantastic. We come back to 2-2. The third goal, same thing. Like he's getting the ball into the area and kind of pushes back and has an opportunity to take a shot with like 3 Monaco players closing in on him. The collective things to do is to, like, when he gets the ball, just knock into his left, where Barcola and I think Nuno Mendes are both wide open with no Monaco players anywhere close to them. So again, he takes the shot, he's a forward, and he converts, and that's what he's here for, and I'm very happy for it. But don't tell me he did the collective things. And the difference between Doué of yesterday against Monaco and Doué of Rennes, there's 2 big differences, in fairness. One big difference is that he moves around a lot more yesterday. You see him roaming around the attack, moving to the left, to the center, to the right. He basically, at one point or the other, is in every position, and he roams into midfield as well. And it makes it impossible for the Monaco defense to really like know where things are at and who's covering him. And that creates a lot of imbalance, and in some cases, it opens lines of passing for us. Not as often as I would want to, but sometimes. So that's one big difference. The second difference, it's not that he plays more collectively, is that instead of missing his little chip over the keeper at the 12th minute against Rennes, this time he scores the goal. And if he had scored that goal against Rennes, I bet you anything, no one would have said anything about him being like not collective enough. So at some point, let's lay back. One is like, he's a forward. His game is not meant to be collective. His game is to like take chances and score goals. And when he does that, I don't care. Yes, sometimes like you want to make the pass to a better placed partner. In fairness, it does that a whole lot, whether that's against Rennes or against Monaco. Once again, look at the games. If anything, he does that maybe more against Rennes than against Monaco. When he gives like that goal on a platter to Dembélé or on the 60th minute against Rennes, yes, he does a lot of crosses against Monaco as well, but I don't think any of them lead to such a clear-cut opportunity. There's a couple of like really well placed, especially towards Warren Zaïre-Emery at the beginning of the second half, which really like Warren Zaïre-Emery should think. But yeah, so for me, like, yeah, the difference is just in terms of statistical output and lending the chances that he has. So that's a big difference. And then I think, like, I'm sorry, but a player like Doué, like, don't criticize him for what he is and what he brings to the table. Like, oh, he's too individualistic and he tries to dribble past player. Yeah, do you want like another player that just knocks the ball around? Like, people are complaining about that as well. We need to have players who like can take people one-on-one or 1v2 and just like get past their defender and create imbalance and create situation. And that's what Doué is here for. Sometimes it works, and then he's a fantastic player. Sometimes it doesn't, because he's also a 19, 20-year-old kid with really like one season at the top level, and he's not going to succeed at everything. And if you're not happy about this, go watch Barcelona, go watch Lamine Yamal season, and you can see that every player of this age, even at this level, they've got games where it doesn't work for them, and it's completely normal. So we've got to lay off. Of course, we should have very high expectation of him. Of course, we should say the games where it doesn't succeed and the games where it doesn't work. But I'm sorry, like I don't want him to turn into like another like Vitinha who just knocks the ball around, who like a few times a game will have a beautiful pass, but like Doué is further up on the pitch. His contribution to our game is meant to be imbalance and taking on people and creating chances and scoring those chances. And if he does that, I'm sorry, I'm happy about it. And ultimately, like I said, he's a 20-year-old with 1 year at this level, and you cannot be expecting him to be prime Cristiano Ronaldo. You cannot. It's just not realistic. And I'm sorry, but like PSG fans, we have a hard tendency to want each of our players to be like the best player in the world in their position. And I'm sorry that sometimes they're not. And even the best player in the world at their position, they're not always at that level. Sometimes like they have dips. I don't know, like even Haaland, like earlier on in the season, I remember him going through like a series of games where he wasn't scoring. Mbappe, for all of the goal scoring that he does, there's criticism about like how much he contributes defensively or not. So literally, like there's not gonna be a ultimate player that gets everything right, and we should like reframe our expectation, especially in light of having young players in the squad, having had a long season last season and no prep and all of those things around, and it's a different season, and that's it. And that's it. So Doué yesterday, fantastic game, great output. He does his celebration with the hands over his ears, like, oh, I'm not listening to the criticism. Well, I guess like when you do that celebration, it shows that you listen to the criticism. But yeah, I'm really happy for him actually, like, and I think that shows something fundamental, which is great, which is mentally the ability to separate. And go, I can be criticized, and some of it is fair, some of it isn't. There were games in the past where he wasn't as decisive as he should be, and didn't convert the chances that he creates or didn't do as much. But at the same time, don't fall into despair when like the whole world seems to be dropping on you, like it did last week. Because like he didn't fully deserve that, and so take the criticisms that justified, but leave the rest out. And if a 20-year-old is able to make that difference, and is able to go past it, then it's fundamentally it puts him in a good position moving forward. So we'll see. Honestly, like we'll see. I think like his next game is probably not going to be at that level, and the last thing as well is that I think a lot of people have kind of a false expectations of Doué based on what they saw in the Champions League final and in a few games in the Club World Cup. And yes, he was at his peak, but if you remember, like all the way for the Champions League final, the morning of the Champions League final, when we do the starting 11, we don't know if Doué is going to start or Barcola. So don't tell me that he was already like at Ballon d'Or level or whatever. Like, no, he was not. He was like really like not a clear-cut starter last season. He had some great performances, quite a few of them. He has an iconic penalty against Liverpool in a game that he did not start. He comes off the bench. He has games against Aston Villa, which are a lot more difficult, even if he scores some wonderful goals. Against Arsenal, it's also like not that easy for him. So he's a player with the ultimate potential, but at some point we need to be realistic with our expectations of him, of what he does for us, where he is in his development, and what we can realistically expect of him. And I think last week, a lot of the fan base and a lot of the environment around PSG wildly missed the mark on this. So good on him for resetting the conversation, and hopefully sets him well for the rest of the season. Now, third point I wanted to cover on tactics, because I think all of the flaws that we saw yesterday, maybe not all of the flaws, I'm not going to pretend, but I think like fundamentally we've got a tactical issue with this team, which is that we're still running the playbook of last season. We're still running the same tactical shape. We're still running the same kind of game. And I've said it before, and I think like, the fans, but also the players and the staff, we fall under this mistake, which is saying like, oh, at some point things are going to click and we're going to go back to the PSG of last season. It is not going to happen. Like, take it off your mind. Nothing is going to click. It's not going to be last season. We're not going to return exactly in the same way. And I think us collectively, like thinking that this is what we should be aiming for, this is what is holding us back. And I'll say it, I think this season, we've got, if I compare to last season, no physical prep, which is impacting our fitness a lot. We've got a defensive line, which is clearly not as good as it was last season. And Marquinhos in particular yesterday, Nuno Mendes yesterday, even if he's, at a top level, like the last two games haven't been good. Even Pacho yesterday has a couple of mistakes. Hakimi is coming back. We don't really know where he's at. Like, we're clearly not at the same level as we were at last year. In midfield, we cannot sustain the volume of pressing that we did last year. Even with João Neves coming back to his top level, even with Warren Zaïre-Emery, who's a high-impact player in the starting 11, we still cannot. And we're missing Fabian Ruiz, and we're missing a connection between defense and offense. And in offense, we see it. We don't have the same volume of runs. We don't have as many. Changes of position, and our opponents have changed as well. Last season, they didn't know how to play us. Now, like, the playback is very, very well settled. It's you play a 5-4-1. You try to play 3 counterattacks in the game, hope to score on one, and see where that takes you. And every opponent has been very good at this. And the couple of really bold ones or strong teams, à la Bayern Munich or like Marseille in the Trophée des Champions, they know that they can try to press us very high once in a while and just regroup very quickly if we manage to get past their first line of pressing. So all of those things are very well established, and I think for us, like, fundamentally, yeah, we're still playing like the same 4-3-3 with Vitinha at the base of midfield, and we take like, oh, Fabian Ruiz isn't there, we'll drop Warren Zaïre-Emery in his place, expecting him to do more or less the same thing. Dembele goes out, we'll drop Doué in his place, expecting to do more or less the same thing. And we don't have Doué on the right, we'll put in Vara, and like, yeah, like the expectation is to do more or less the same thing. And I think we need a tactical evolution at this point. And I'll tell you what, even more, I think for me, from my very like low level understanding of football, if I compare to the Luis Enrique's of the world, one of the things that is starting to trigger me is that I think our midfield is not set up right anymore. And specifically, I think Vitinha is not set up right anymore. I think having him in the number 6 position, it's not adapted to what we're facing and where we are anymore. I think he needs to be further up on the pitch, and I think we need to play a more like impactful and physical defensive midfielder. So either like João Neves or Warren Zaïre-Emery, who can support our central defense a lot more, who can still have a high volume of runs. Obviously, he's not going to be as technical, but we need our technical players to be further up the pitch so they can make that connection between our defense and our offense. And, the Dembeles and Doué of the world don't need to drop back quite as much to organize the game. I think right now we're missing that. And so what happens is that we move into offense strictly through connection between our fullbacks and our wingers. Yes, João Neves and Warren Zaïre-Emery yesterday, they have good games, they make a lot of runs, they contribute in defense and they contribute in offense, but they're not going to be the one with a killer pass. and we need sometimes a killer pass in the middle so that we're not as expected in the way we move into offense. Because right now, like, yeah, our opponents know exactly what they do. Like, they close off the middle a little bit. We're going to turn around. The ball is going to go into offense through one of the wingers, but if there's enough density, they're not going to be able to make anything of it. So they'll pass back to Vitinha. We'll pass it on the other side. Doué and Hakimi will combine for 3 passes, pass it back to Vitinha, and so on and so forth. And we don't get anywhere. And so I really do think, in the absence of Fabian Ruiz, and even if we had Fabian Ruiz back in action, I do think like we need to move Vitinha further up on the pitch, so he can be more impactful and create further up on the pitch. Even Vitinha have more opportunities of shooting from afar, which we know he's good at, and we know he can score some goals with it. And then we need like a more like physical and defensive-minded defensive midfielder who can help our central defenders, who can help close off any of the counter attacks that our opponents get. And yeah, like when I see like the goals yesterday, I'm sorry, but the first one, our whole defense is getting taken out of position. And you can criticize Hakimi for losing his 2v1 on his side. Hard one to win, but he was 2v1. You can criticize Marquinhos a lot for getting completely taken out of position and running into midfield for like God knows what reason. You can criticize Pacho for getting sucked in, and then you can criticize Nuno Mendes for also like getting sucked in without keeping track of 2 Monaco players in our 6-yard box in his back. But then you do that, and then the question is, okay, Marquinhos is getting sucked in, Pacho moves into cover, and then Nuno Mendes moves into cover for Pacho, but then like, where is Barcola or Joao Neves to cover for Nuno Mendes, which is what they're supposed to do? And if you look at this, Barcola is nowhere on the picture. And Nuno Mendes, he takes like half of a lateral run, but he's like so far from the action anyway that he's not in a position to compensate. And I'm sorry, Vitinha does not have, for fantastic player, best midfielder in the world, does not have the defensive know-how and defensive awareness to, without thinking, be able to take those moves. And yeah, like, or I'm sorry, or right central defenders, whether it's Marquinhos or Zabarni, getting sucked in and pulled out of position, and then having space open in our defense. It's happened like 5 times in the last 2 games. I mean, like, it happens all the time. So we need a fix, and I think it is a tactical fix. And, you know, God bless Luis Enrique, statue in front of the Parc des Princes, still to this day, but it is not last season anymore. We're not the same team. We don't have the same players in some case. Even the players that are still the same, they've evolved. They've got 1 more year and they don't play the same, and they don't have the same level of fitness. So we need to adapt. And if anything, that's kind of what's making me most worried about this season, is that in the past, it felt like when we get to this point in the season, Luis Enrique has built 43 different things in his toolbox that he can use and that he can drop in to get the team the way we want it. And I think this season, we've been so constrained with injury. We've been so constrained with like the hype of the European champion and how great we are and how great we played and so on, and the last season of it all, that I don't think we've got as much in the toolbox. I don't think we've tried as much tactically. I don't think if you change like the way your midfield is built tomorrow, I don't think players can adapt to that in 1 or 2 games. I think it takes 5 or 6, and we don't really have that time anymore. So I might be wrong, but yeah, like that's really like what jumped to me. I wanted to kind of touch base with you guys on this. In the end, we did get the win. Doué's answer, 3-2. We take a 1-goal lead into Parc des Princes in what will be a hard-fought return game. We are not qualified yet. Let's not overdo it after having gotten the win. It is not Man City, and anyone who says like Man City and last season, like, just shut up already. But yeah, let me know in the comment what you thought of the game. Let me know in the comment what you think of my analysis, and if tactically like you agree with what I laid out. I'm sorry for being rather lengthy, but it is, I think, super important and technical. As always, drop a like if you've made it this far into the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And in win, Doué's answer, ici c'est bye!